Assassin's Promise by Thomas Woodward. Chapter 33. Asric stepped forward into his chambers. Noticing the newly laid outfit for him placed appropriately on his four-poster bed, he nodded once before briskly walking to his balcony. Pushing open the gilded doors with an uncalloused hand, he moved with a regal air. The city spread out before him in a wide semicircle. His grand keep rose above this city on the steep incline that climbed to a cliff behind him. This granted him an unobscured view of the merchant quarter and lower bourgeois quarter, before dimly receding outwards towards the peasant quarter and wharf. The city, built in a naturally defensible position, needed his protection and would seek safety up the mountainside, behind his thick walls in time of war. For this protection, he levied taxes heavily upon his populace. He was a minor lord, a fact he was constantly reminded of by his somewhat meager estates. His pickings had been forced outwards into the distant reaches of the continent, far from the 9 ringed cities. His house had been powerful once. His most recent political blunder had set back plans he had set in motion years ago. He would need to make a brilliant move in the next few months to regain a measure of his previous success. Intrigue was the great game that most nobles lived for. Power, dominance, and to a lesser extent, even pleasures of the flesh. They were all tied to one's success or failure at the great game. Lucrative merchant contracts came with success. Truly lavish contracts came with notoriety and success. Some other foolish nobles assumed the most important thing was to be remembered for 1,000 years. Nothing could be further from what mattered. Who cared if someone touted his name long after he was dead and gone? Utter silliness. What lesser nobles failed to see was that power for power's own sake was what truly mattered. Notoriety could only follow suit. Wresting power away from those beneath him would pay dividends in his own lifetime, but he needed someone he could trust. Curse the fool noble who forgot his most basic tenet of leadership. For now, he would have to forego true trust. In its place, he would need to garner a poor imitation of trust by offering promises of great wealth and station. The beauty of this was that whether or not such promises ever truly led to fame or riches was beside the point. Few remembered those who had helped him along the way after he had thrown them into a dungeon. The commoner did not possess a long memory, or a particularly good one where politics were concerned. They only cared whether or not the immediate needs placed in front of them were being met, or those that had been promised to be met. He laughed. Commoners were nothing if not predictable. Predictable tools were the best tools, he thought, chuckling softly. A greedy man was one who could be controlled. A man with no known agenda, that was a dangerous man to be watched or dealt with swiftly, should suspicion warrant it. Asric's eyes followed the slowly weaving specks that moved down the narrow streets of the city. He liked to look at the little wretches as they went on about their mundane lives, never knowing where their next meal might be coming from. His lip twitched. Where was Calian? That damnable man, he had the most disconcerting habits. Calian was a man of excess, pure and simple. It was part of what Asric admired about him. Oh, he himself would go carousing, but it was only to satisfy the base urges. Calian reveled in it. He had always been that way, however. Calian had been a great lover during his time growing up in this city, Caliapos. Asric had watched his friend during their early years and could not help but wonder if his way was better, grander even than his own. But it lacked finesse. That was what he had always admired most in his great political schemes, played out to perfection. He could turn the ordering of an assassination into an art. Why simply stop with the removing of the offending party? To truly deliver a message, and with the slightest effort, one could rekindle and inflame an old grudge between families and notify the opposing party, so the assassin themselves would then be dealt with, all in one clean, beautiful package. He would come out playing the part of the brave supporter while accomplishing his original goal simultaneously. This was art. Too often a crude hand with these things would lead to a botched assassination attempt, or worse, implicate the actual party behind it. A true failure could often be turned to his own advantage. Why the young lordling had survived? A miracle, it would be proclaimed. Then a year later, perhaps 2, an unfortunate accident, noted only in passing, would befall the poor wretch. Subtlety was required, from a steady hand like his own guiding the plan forward. No, He was not the same man as his friend Kalian. Far from it. But he did miss the man's naked extravagance. Rubbing his chin, he moved back to his rooms, dressing with a steady calm that he did not feel. Sweat slicked his brow. He could not watch everyone himself. He would need to be forthcoming with more bribes. He turned to regard his rooms with disgust. Turning on his heel, Azric left the rooms behind, making his way towards the great hall, several floors beneath him. His audience today would consist of other minor nobles, as well as town functionaries. A small group of the merchant class and upper bourgeois class may be in attendance as well. He would outline the newest tax levies to be raised by the 9th day of Quenth. The last day of Moran was fast approaching. The month had come and gone in the blink of an eye. He needed more time. For the moment, he had to forget his own paranoid worries in the face of more pressing business concerns of his. He held options on several different goods to be shipped in the late months of the year. He had already had to exercise an option prematurely from another merchant contract, costing him no small amount of coin. It came as no surprise that spy hunters were not cheap. Good ones with a strong reputation, doubly so. They often had rather short life expectancies, which allowed veterans of the trade to command a much larger fee for their services. If he had the breathing room, he would have far preferred to allow the spies who undoubtedly already were secreted among his city to go unnoticed. Far easier it would have been to simply provide false information in front of large gatherings, sending them on false trails. Once you knew a spy, it took only a moment to realize it was better to let them stay under their cover and let them think they were gathering valuable information. The alternative, killing them, would only cause another to take their place. Why spend more resources continually searching them out? He did not have this luxury now, however. Word had already spread of his faux pas, and any one of the dozen spies his spy masters already knew about could try an assassination attempt at any moment. No, now he had to wipe the keep and the city clean of them. He would run the streets red if the measures required it. The money could be made back again, or blackmailed out of lesser nobles. His life, that was a singular resource. He wished he could simply rule separate and apart from it all. Why invite attack by making himself a target out in the open? Even here, behind the walls of his great keep, continued existence was far from certain. If he had a group loyal to him that would unquestionably do his bidding, he could then safely create a barrier between himself and the outside world. Again, he found himself returning to the subject of trust. A man like himself never really trusted another, not fully, in truth. He knew this to be true. It was men like himself who most needed it from others, however. What a twisted sense of humor the nameless gods must have had when creating this world. Rorik, he often paid homage to the god of blood and gold. Either the wise or the very foolish nobleman often did. He didn't really believe, but it was important to project a different image to his populace so he could better control them. He had grown up breathing in false pretenses and using them for his own ends as another might learn how to walk. His father had been a hard man, but weak nonetheless. He had fallen to such an easy trap, tricking himself into a stupor within this very keep. It would no doubt have been easy to poison such a man, had one the means or desire. Looking in a gleaming, polished mirror as Azric came to a stop at one of the intersections in the hallway, his calm demeanor belied his true feelings. Carrying his official coronet of station, as ruler of this city, he set it in place on his head and moved forwards towards the final bend that would empty out into the great hall. His heavy garnet signet ring brushed his coat as he slipped it into place on his finger. Finally, setting the silver chain over his neck, miniature silver hammers swinging on its length, he entered the great hall, striding forward with intention.